I think we're the first session after lunch. We have the most difficult session of the day. I think it's the second day after lunch, and we are going to talk about delivering true circularity. So I think very ambitious. I hope the audience is with us. See everyone with the headphone on. So what are we going to do? What are the topics we're going to cover? Our key questions are: what does true circularity entail? What are barriers to scaling innovative, more circular materials and processes? And what does it take to make circularity the norm? And what I always like in these kind of conferences, if you can build on what other speakers said. And I was in a session yesterday, and Tricia Carey from Circularity, she had a very nice expression, and I want to quote it as a start of this panel. There is no straight path to achieving circularity. And I think that is exactly what we're going to explore today, this path to achieving circularity. What are your experiences? Because this is a topic you all work on. And I'll introduce the panelists very shortly, don't worry. But also, so what does this path look like? But also, what are potential shortcuts? So what can you learn from each other to make the path less long on our journey to circularity? Well, you can see on the screen, so I'm joined by Camille from Chargeurs PCC, Hannes from Bananatex, Angeline from OnceMore/Södra, and Regina from Pyratex. And I'll go to the panelists very shortly. But what I wanted to do is start with a definition of circularity, because it's a term that is extremely broad. It's a term that people interpret in a different way. It's a term that people, when we talk about circularity, often people think it's about recycling. That's not the case. So let's start with some definitions. By the way, I'm Hilde van Duijn. I'm the Managing Director of the Circle Economy Foundation. And investigating circularity, what it means and how we can achieve that, is actually what we do. We're an impact organization. So let's start with some definitions. The circular economy is an economic system where waste is designed out. Everything is used at its highest possible value for as long as possible, and natural systems are regenerated. That's the definition of circularity. Circularity basically means we need to use less, we need to use longer, we need to use more sustainable and regenerative materials, and really at the end of the line, if nothing else can be done, we need to use again or recycle. And circularity is not one measure alone. Circularity entails multiple business models, multiple materials. So we're going to hear from some amazing examples, but none of them is the answer to the whole transition to circularity of the whole industry. So it is quite a complex transition, but it's not one that is only happening in the future. It has already started today. So there are examples out there of what true circularity can already mean today. And I wanted to do a little quiz to just see whether you guys are awake, whether you're listening, whether you can hear me. So as I said, I'm with the Circle Economy Foundation, and every year we publish the Circularity Gap Report. And in the Circularity Gap Report, it's a global report. We measure how circular is the world. So we take the world as a big black box, and we measure what's going on, what's going out, and what is actually being redirected, what part of it is regenerative, what part of it is not regenerative or fossil fuels. And that's how we create a metric. And last year, we found that the world back then was 7.2% circular. So the whole world was 7.2% circular. Now, the little quiz is, we are currently doing a circularity gap report for the global textiles industry. So we're measuring how circular is the whole textiles industry globally. My question is, because I know the metric, but I cannot announce it yet, because the report is going to be published in September, October. But given that the world is 7.2% circular, who thinks the textiles industry is more circular than the average in the world? So who thinks the textiles industry is more than 7.2% circular? Raise your hand. Who think it's probably let's say between 5 and 7% circular, so a little bit less than the average across all sectors. Who thinks that the textiles industry is 5 to 7% circular? Raise your hand. There's not a lot of optimism, or people don't hear me, I don't know. Who thinks that the metric is actually below 5%, so the textiles industry is less than 5% circular? Yeah. Well, cliffhanger for September, October, it might be less than 1%. So that's really, like, if you look at the textiles industry as a black box, we have a long way to go. But we should not despair, because there are great initiatives that are already happening today. We can learn from their journey, and we can also really tap into those. So if those initiatives also scale, it actually really contributes to a more circular textiles industry. So that's what this panel is about. We're here to celebrate and learn from these circular frontrunners, and take back their, learn from their experiences and understand what their solutions entail. Because combined, they offer an appealing set of strategies to realize circularity across different product groups. So we'll also hear quite some examples that are extremely relevant for some of the product groups in the textiles industry. So let's move to the panel, and I want to move to Hannes first. And I'm going to have the same first question to all the panelists, so the others also know, because I just told you about circularity and what it entails. But Hannes, could you tell us how does Bananatex contribute to circularity in approximately a minute?
All right, that's a difficult one.
I know.
Well, Bananatex is a fabric, a textile made from a species of banana fiber. And we have developed it as a natural circular solution. It grows in the wild, there's no chemicals involved. We process it without further chemicals. We try to use dyes that are not harmful. And so we create a product that can be decomposed easily at the end of its lifespan. And so this closes the natural cycle. And therefore, we're happy to offer this to as many applications as possible, because we believe in this being a part of a solution.
Yeah, amazing. And I think a great example of using sustainable materials and also phasing out, let's say, the chemicals, the hazardous materials. And as I said, circularity is a journey, so small changes can already make a difference. But of course, we all need to aim for the moon. So let's not settle with small changes. We need to aim for the moon, and that's actually what Bananatex has been doing, because you are Cradle to Cradle certified. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey towards circularity, and also to actually, what did it take to put Cradle to Cradle certified products on the market? The 5-minute version.
Now I have 5, okay, yeah, that's good. Well, so in the very beginning, I need to say we have been starting as a bag brand. So we come from the industry side, and we started in 2008 and decided to use as many natural materials as possible in a world full of plastics. And we started with cotton, and then we had the possibility to do some developments in linen and hemp and others. And in 2015, we started working with the banana fiber, which is the strongest plant fiber in the world. And it took us 3 years until we presented our first backpacks in this material. So that was already a big journey of 10 years to come to that point. But then we also, of course, understood that we need to share it with other brands in order to cause positive change, because being a small brand label is setting an example, but it's not really meaningful in terms of scale. So we announced to everyone, basically, we're happy to share, and lots of companies came our way and asked for samples and lots of questions we could answer and others we couldn't. And of course, we were totally overwhelmed as a bag brand, so we decided to create an own entity, an own company team to develop the fabric together with other industries. We knew everyone in the supply chain, so for our bags, it was not necessary to go and get a certification. But when you work with the H&Ms and the luxury maisons, of course, they would say, can you prove what you claim? And then we thought, okay, yeah, we need a certification, and Cradle to Cradle, in our point of view, was the most credible, most complete certification process, looking at water, energy, social components, and all of that. And so we decided to do that certification. And it's a long process. It's expensive. It's taking 1 to 2 years in our case until you get to a final stage. But we could prove, especially the content of the material and everything around it. And I think it was the right way for us to go.
Yeah. And so your cradle-to-cradle certification is on the fabric level, not on the product, because you also make backpacks, right?
Exactly. We decided to make it from like the pharma to the fabric, because we share it to footwear brands or furniture makers, and it's impossible to certify every product. It would also be not possible to afford that. So we said we stop there. We have done the certification even with a water durable treatment, because you need that very often in terms of accessories, footwear. So that is a very appreciated property, and different colorways as well.
Yeah. And what's your experience working with your supply chain partners and getting certified? Because I mean, you can have the wish to have a cradle-to-cradle certified fabric, but of course you also then need to work with all your supply chain partners in achieving that. What did that journey look like? Was it easy?
In our case, we were fortunate because our partners are all on a very professional industrial level. The way we process the fiber into yarn and then into fabric is done with professionals in Taiwan. It's almost like Silicon Valley for textile development. And they were used to work with certification bodies and contributing with Excel sheets and tons of forms and stuff. So it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes budget, but it wasn't impossible in our case.
Yeah, I think that's also a very hopeful conclusion. Like it takes time, it takes efforts, but it was not impossible. And then you do reach it. It is the as I said. I mean, aiming for the moon, cradle to cradle is the most rigid certification that you can get out there. So you would recommend others to also aim for the moon.
Yeah, I think I would recommend that. I mean, there are hundreds of certifications, and we looked into lots of them, and I must say some of them are really totally useless, to be honest. You download a form, fill it out, and then you're certified. And of course, that was not an option for us.
Yeah.
But the journey didn't end there. We then, of course, wanted to make a product that is circular. So we developed a backpack and different kinds of bags. And then you have to look at EVAs, how to replace it, what kind of threads you use for sewing, because everything is nylon usually. What do you do with the coating? How do you make it waterproof without petrochemical substances? And so on and so forth. So that was the second part of our journey until we got the products also to that level.
Yeah.
We're, by the way, over there, and everyone can have a look at the fabrics as well as the products.
Also, the backpack is
there.
Oh, great! Yeah. Well, let's move to Regina. Thank you, Hannes. We'll come back to you later. Tell us, how does Pyratex contribute to circularity? Again, in a minute.
Okay, well, hi everyone. So Pyratex is a textile supplier that develops a lot of different fabrics. At the moment, we've developed already 150 formulas, textile formulas, with very different fibers. We've been very much focused on natural fibers, and actually we do have in our range some abaca and banana agri-waste blends, and then MMCFs is a big group of fibers that we work with. And then we've been, since 2018, doing a lot of research and a lot of developments around recycled fibers. We started in 2018 creating programs of recycled cotton, very traced post-industrial cotton from cutting tables, as we've already seen with a lot of suppliers. Our major focus the recycling part has always been, well, we have to maintain the level of quality that we can get into a virgin material without using certain chemicals at the finishing level to improve peeling, let's say. So of course that's been challenging. A lot of know-how and R&D has been dedicating to the way we spin the yarns, the way we knit the fabrics, but today we've managed to prove to the fashion industry that we can make beautiful fabrics with recycled fibers. And at the moment we already have in our range fabrics with 100% recycled cotton. Then our next step was into chemical recycling. We've been developing beautiful collections with circulose, with very different structures. Sorry, by the way, our expertise is on two major fields. One is circular knitted fabric, so all kind of jerseys and structures, some of them more for the pret-a-porter field, others more for sportswear. And then also a couple of years ago, we started to develop knitwear, because as we spin our own yarns, we decided to see what other applications we could give to our yarns. And actually, well, what I'm wearing is an example of a product we do. On knitwear, we go from the yarn to the finished product, so we actually avoid a step, and it's an interesting business. And also on the knitwear side, we see less innovative fibers coming in compared to other type of textiles, so very interesting. And well, now our new step, or our latest step regarding recycled fibers, has been a key partnership for us with Circ. Circ is an American company that has developed this amazing innovation technology to recycle polyester and cotton blends, which surprisingly, because when we started collaborating with Circ, this is a data that we didn't know, there is more blends of polycotton in our market, in our industry, that is being produced, more than fully cotton blends or fully polyester blends. We at Pyratex don't blend both fibers, so well, we weren't aware of that, and it's very interesting because they are being able to give us, through their technology, new lyocell fiber originated from the cotton part of the blend, because they are separating both fibers, and the polyester is recycled polyester fiber. So very, very excited about what are the materials that can come up from those developments. And I would say that our contribution to circularity is giving access to the fashion brands of these amazing fabrics that are tangible, available, that can be produced in the same lead times than traditional materials, which is one of the challenges. And then, well, developing fabrics from the very beginning, thinking about its circularity design aspect, so either exploring the biodegradability path or the circularity path. For us, it would be a dream come true to have all our fabrics certified cradle to cradle. We use their pillars when designing our fabrics. It's challenging because at the end it's a lot of fibers and a lot of different processes and partners and expertise. But well, let's see, maybe one day maybe we can start with one family of materials and go little by little.
Yeah. And what I find fascinating, because of course I also am familiar with your organization, I looked around on your offering, and it's this really broad range of different, I mean, you also mentioned them, this range of products that you have. So you kind of see the fabrics portfolio, well, not of the future, it should have been the fabric portfolio of today that really addresses, like, has an offer for different types of product groups, different types of performance requirements. But according to you, because you work on so many different, more sustainable options, why is this not the norm yet? So why aren't all the fibers like the more sustainable options that you work on?
Yeah. Well, I think there is a lot of challenges, and we could spend the whole afternoon talking about them. But if I had to pick one of the major challenges, I believe, to integrate these responsible materials as the norm is still a supply chain that is very fragmented, that is very horizontalized. We always talk about the big brands and the groups that are making more than $1 billion of dollars a year, but the reality is that 68% of our fashion industry is represented by brands that are completely horizontal and that are purchasing fabric. So at the moment, there is solutions that are coming up at the fiber level, for example, but sometimes we're lacking those textiles that are ready to be implemented in the next collection and that are reliable. I think brands at the end, the material is everything, is really the main ingredient. I mean, designs can be beautiful, but if you don't have that ingredient, you can have the best chef in the world. So it's an important decision for brands, and I think there is still a lot to be developed and a lot of offer to be brought to the brands, guaranteeing quality, service, design. So what we see, for example, on the Pyratex side is that brands are really looking for the substitution material to their existing product. But in terms of designs, in terms of look and feel, it has to be similar because you're tackling their best sellers. So we see that this is a challenge. We see in this fair already a lot of solutions. I think the offer is evolving very quick, and we're happy to see more and more. Maybe from an external eye, it can be competitors, but we see them as collaborators and people that are going towards the same direction. And us on the Pyratex side, we like to be called that distribution channel of innovation, and being able to be that midstream partner that is bringing those beautiful and amazing solutions and fibers into real tangible products.
Yeah. There's one P word I would like to address. Maybe you also saw the panel yesterday on prices. So because you mentioned, like, when I hear this, I think, oh, it will just take time. Brands need to get used to it. They need to figure out how this all works. What's your take then on the financial feasibility?
Yeah, well, definitely is a challenge. On one side, all these next-gen fiber innovators need those supports, those commitments. So we are playing with new business models, and that's challenging. I think it would make it easier for them if they would be able already to see tangible fabrics that can be made with those solutions. That's why I think partnerships like the one that we're doing with Cirque, where we're covering the full supply chain, are super important. And then, well, that's always a challenge. I mean, costs can go down if there is no volume, and nowadays we understand that the market is struggling because costs in general, also for traditional materials, are increasing. So that's where we have to find also, that's definitely one of the challenges, I would say. But we see that also materials are more and more accessible. On our side, for example, we started in 2018 with certain costs, and every year since 2018, we've been able to reduce our fabric costs of 20%. When we started, we were only selling our materials at 60 euros a meter, and now we do have in our range fabrics at 4 or 5 euros a meter. So we also have more expensive ones, but it's a process.
Yeah, but options are definitely there already. Let's move to Angeline. And what I really love about this panel is in this 45 minutes, we're basically strolling through the whole value chain of textiles, because we just talked about fabric and the fabric options. And we're now going to move to the end of the value chain and the start again of the value chain, of course, because it's circular, to Södra. as we know, fashion brands, but also governments, we have really high ambitions when it comes to fiber-to-fiber recycling, and of course, more sustainable natural materials. And I think the holy grail is really around post-consumer textiles. So this mountain of post-consumer textiles, and how to actually ensure that it will enter the textiles value chain again. So first, sorry, I almost forgot my first question. How does Södra contribute to circularity? Maybe in your words, Angeline, and then I'll go to my own question.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So we are an enabler for the industry to meet the targets, both when it comes to circularity, when it comes to working with certified material, sustainably managed material, but also recycled content in the material that we are using. We produce dissolving pulp, and it's based on textile waste and the wood. So we are doing the blend. So we are producing the pulp, and it's then already ready-made for the viscose and modal industry. So what we are doing is that we have a technology in the southern part of Sweden where we can take in textile waste, focusing on the post-consumer, as you mentioned. We separate the polyester and the cotton. We take out the cellulose from the cotton and we blend it with the cellulose from the wood. And the wood is coming from our members. That's why we're talking both about Södra and OnceMore. The company is Södra, and we are a corporation in Sweden, and we are owned by 50,000 forest owners. So they supply us with the wood, so we know where it's coming from, and it's been sustainably managed in Sweden, and then we blend it with the textile waste. So today we are on a scale to have 20% recycled content in the product, but we are aiming for a 50-50 product, and we think that's the best blend because we get to take care of a lot of textile waste, but we also can keep the good quality and deliver a really high quality product to the industry.
And when you talk about textile waste, is it all post-consumer textile waste or also post-industrial textile waste that you currently work with?
Right now, it's all post-consumer waste, both household and industrial.
Yeah.
We are also looking into post-industrial because it can help us on our journey.
Yeah.
We need to broaden the technical specifications, and if we're working with the cutting scraps, for example, we can get all the information from the producers. But for post-consumer, it's quite hard.
Yeah.
Then we can only get the information that it's on the hang tag.
Yes, indeed. And what surprised me a bit, because I just referred to these ambitions of the fashion industry and of governments on recycling post-consumer textiles. But Södra actually already moved that direction before, I think. So not in the past 2 years, but this is something you've been working on for a longer time. So I was curious to know what made Södra one of the first recyclers of post-consumer textiles. So why were you already doing this? And why are you not yet recycling all these textiles disposed of in Europe? Because the mountains are big and growing. So curious.
Let's take the first part of the question. It was quite a bold decision. I mean, back to Södra and our roots. It was founded in 1938, so we have a history. We are a traditional forest company in Sweden, but we're quite innovative and always looking into new fields, both to reduce the dependency on fossil fuels, but also to really use every part of the tree and to be able to use the same amount of tree but produce even more products. So this was one of the innovations that we launched 2020. And I think it comes from actually where we have our expertise from the forest. If you look into the paper and board business, about 70% of the products that you're buying in the store today, if you buy tissue or magazine or packaging, 70% is coming from recycled sources. And that's totally a different number, as you mentioned in the beginning, when it comes to the textile industry. So we saw a gap, and we had the solution. But when we launched this in 2020, coming into the post-consumer textile waste, we thought really that the feedstock would be one of the major challenges to get this feedstock into our facility. And I think we've all heard about the challenges for sorting and collecting. For the collecting, we said, no, the infrastructure is not in place. We need another 5-10 years. We don't know. And then for the sorting, we always said, oh, it's too much manual work. It's going to be so hard to scale up. But the last 2 years, I would say, that's not the challenge. That's not the main challenge for us. We have secured the textile waste. Now it's more about the demand that it's lacking. And I think most of the solution providers I'm talking to has the same challenge right now. That to be able to scale up, we get requests from brands, I would say every other day. Can you please take care of our waste? Do you want to set up a take-back scheme? It's quite questions that we get every week at least. But then we also need to verify that they can buy the product. And we are very grateful for the collaborations that we have today. We have garments, we have fabrics, we have really good partnerships, but we need more.
Yeah.
But we can see that we really can add a value to the partners that we are collaborating with, both with the brands, a lot about, as you mentioned, the knowledge sharing, getting the data all the way through the value chain, but also just talking to each other. Getting to know each other. What's your challenges? This is our challenges, and how can we support each other? And going back to the second part of the question, we are ready to scale up. We have the technique. It's there. We need to do some investments. We can secure the feedstock, but now we need the demand.
Yeah.
And we will get those requests. But our answer right now is also that we don't have a magic box. Unfortunately, we cannot take whatever waste. As you mentioned, there's a lot of waste, but we cannot take whatever waste and just transform it to a high-quality product that will perform as well as the conventional viscose. And you also talked about this. The quality is really good because otherwise we are not doing the true circularity. We are not following the sign for circularity when it comes to longevity and so on. But in parallel, we are working with our magic box to broaden the technical specification. But we also need the brands to look into the design principles. What's the thought when we cannot use those garments anymore? And also, of course, the sorters. They're also working on the technique. We need to scale up. We need to have automatically technique that can help this. So we're all in the same boat, I would say. And we need to work in our field, use our expertise. But we also need to connect to understand how we can support each other.
Yeah, I think that's also a great point because we often use this like buzzword of we need partnerships. But I think a partnership is not just knowing each other. It's really understanding what's your business, what are your struggles, what's your business case. What are your barriers to scale? Because I mean, personally, I worked a lot with textile sorters, and I also know their side of the story. And both sides of the all sides of the story are true. That's we shouldn't just try to simplify everything as if there's one truth, because everyone is part of this value chain and tries to move to circularity, but has different challenges to overcome. So I think this notion of partnerships, but then really truly understanding what's happening behind someone's front door is also extremely important. Let's move to you, Camille.
Hi.
First question, of course. So how does Chargeurs PCC contribute to circularity?
So for those who doesn't know Chargeurs PCC, we are an interlining company. So interlining, it's a not well-known fabric, which is often found in your color as a between a lining and outdoor fabric. So we are an invisible fabric. We have different way of implementing circularity, whether it's in our site, because we have 7 industrial sites around the world. We produce a lot of fabric, 350 million meter a year. So on the industrial site, it's about taking care of our waste on a daily basis. This is how circularity starts, but it's on the product level. So how you recycle your also fabric waste when you produce fabric. So how you close your own loop, not just only with R&D and development. And of course, it's also developing new products. So we have a few new products, whether they are in collaboration with partners, well-known partners, which are not there today, or local partner. It's also looking at your ecosystem. So way back in the days in Brazil, for example, we use our waste once fabric is knitted, and we re-knit, we respin some yarn, and we then have new fabrics. So it's implementing this, but it's also local partnership. We worked with people which collect in France broken windscreen, for example, and then we made fabric out of this. So it's local partnership with new buddies. So it's looking at what is scalable, what can work with one facility, which answer one brand demands. We have 1,600 brands working with us. So you don't work the same way with luxuries and you work with ready-to-wear or fast fashion. We do work with fast fashion, and we have to tackle those subjects as well because we produce for everyone. And circularity can't just be something for a niche. It needs to be implemented, as I said again, on a daily basis of how you look at your waste and how you produce a new product. So yeah, we have development. We do it in all of our 7 sites, whether it's for packaging or our own resource. It's a broad subject, not only on product.
Yeah. And my question to you is, because you have experience in actually going through this process and with your partners in your own supply chain, and we just heard from the other panelists, like we have a beautiful example of getting Cradle to Cradle certified, the importance of partnerships, of product performance. We touched on price. And my question to you is, Camille, do you think we are just being a little bit impatient? Like, because, I mean, you've been through this process, you know what it takes. Are we going to get there, or do we need? Is there any more radical action that you think we should consider in this journey towards circularity?
So it's a difficult question because we are very slow, and us as big industrial, we know the time it's a long time. Nothing can be made in a day when you have to change your process, invest in new machine, and often fashion brands ask us a lot of change and investment and innovation. But then at the end of the day, when the question is always about cost, that's the second question after what is new. So it's innovation as no more money. So for us, it's a really tricky one because we produce loads of new circular fabric or monomaterial because we are part of the recycling problem. Because so interlining, it's a base, whether it's cotton, polyester, and then you have glue. So if you want to recycle a fabric, you need monomaterial, and for example, we can have a glue which is monomaterial, for example, polyester glue with a polyester fabric on a polyester garment, then it's recyclable. But when we produce those kind of fabric, basically the brand don't buy it. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's a lot of R&D and no engagement, or for capsule collection, which then you can't change your sourcing because then it's a volume. You make better price with bigger volume. We're like everyone. So again, it's engagement for scalability, even with big industrial like us, because we can change our supply chain, but we need to change it for higher volume, because at the end of the day, we have 5,000 people working for us, and a lot of the time it's just business as usual. We see it every day, not with luxury. So luxury is ahead, and we have R&D working with them on amazing things, but it's way slower for some of the lower budget of our brand. And so to your answer, I think luxury is heading towards the right direction, but the rest of the market, it's still slow. Yeah. Just because it's all price-based and price-sensitive. But I mean, who doesn't do it? Are we not all a bit cheap when it comes to send and spend your own money, you know?
That's something to reflect upon in this Wednesday afternoon for sure. I think it's a great point. Thank you so much. There is some time for questions, and also panelists, if you have a question to one another, you can also raise your hand. But also if there's anyone in the audience that has a question, just put up your hand and we'll go to you. Otherwise, I have a million of questions. So, I mean, if no hand is raised, then no worries at all. Do you think about it? Any questions from you? Because otherwise, I'll just continue. I think we heard many things like this, like knowledge on what does circularity really mean. the use of the journey on adopting concepts like cradle to cradle, partnerships, infrastructure, performance, prices, skill, I think, demand at skill. But panelists, if you could tomorrow change one thing to speed up this transition to circularity, what would it be? And it has to be something that actually people can do. So, I mean, maybe consumer behavior, it's definitely something people can do, but maybe that's a little bit out of our reach, but we know who the audience is. So if there's one thing you could change tomorrow, what would it be? Camille?
Yeah, on the term of price, again, it was really on how we buy, whether you're a company, a big company, a small company, how much more you can spend on what we call innovation to scale it. But we have to think about price daily in the way we choose the society we live in. So the way we buy in our company, the way we buy in our home, and then it reflects the way we buy ourselves. We are all parts of the solution. And unless everyone do a little effort, we will collectively go nowhere, and it starts with us. That's one thing I think it's very important. We all have to be price-oriented, results in our home, but also in our company.
The company. Hannes, what would you change?
I would also be in that price area. Yeah. And I tend to look at the big picture, and I think we have to change the rules of the game, because the rules of the game are beneficial for those who do not work responsibly. So the biggest problem, I think, is that cost and price is not on the same level. So when you buy a polyester fabric for $2, then this is the price, but it's not the cost. The cost will be paid by the next generation, getting microplastics out of the ocean or the bloodstreams, as we know, where it can be found. And we need to change the rules. We need to tax virgin plastic in consumer goods. We need to tax CO2 on a level where it belongs. Mm-hmm. And this will cause more expensive materials, but it will benefit those who really act responsibly, and it will benefit the true circular solutions.
Yeah. So true circular solutions through true pricing of actual, let's say, also the externalities of materials, for instance, being used, which currently is, of course, not reflected in prices, as you illustrated with polyester. What about you? What would you change?
Yeah, I agree with Hannes and Camille what they said, but I would also add more power for the sustainability targets, because right now the financial targets is the same way the pricing and business is driving, and it takes too much time. We need more power for the sustainability targets. We have the legislation coming up, but we don't know when, we don't know what, and we cannot sit and wait.
Great point. Yeah.
Totally aligned, but to add one more layer, I think we have to push more for education, because I think that what is one of the most concerning things at the moment is when we look at new generations and their consumer behaviors sometimes, or even when we're working with new generations that are now arriving to brands and being part of product and sourcing teams. I think there is still missing a lot of educational, and these topics should be a topic in the classrooms since they are very, very little. And of course, I know that progress has been done, and probably when we were at school, this wasn't at all discussed. But I think at the end, one of the biggest steps is consciousness, understanding the impact in order to change behaviors. And also that's the best way to push brands for the change, if the consumer is educated and asking for these solutions. Yeah.
If I may also add something to my own question, to add on what you said about education, because I think definitely education here, but I think equally important is education across the supply chains also. Obviously in the textiles industry, mostly outside, for a big part outside of Europe as well, on what circularity entails, and also the options that are already out there. I think that is also something that if we really want new materials to also be adopted at scale in those value chains that have a big component located more in Asian countries, for instance, that also they should be part of this transition, which also means they also need to know about these materials and what circularity entails. So maybe to just add to what you said. I think we're on time, but I will ask for just one last round, because we have an audience here, and we just touched on the big barriers and the big things that they that we need to address in the system. But if you would have one sentence, one advice to the audience today, what can they do now? Besides, of course, visiting all these amazing panelists in their stands. That's one thing that is my call to action. But what is your one advice, call to action? And very briefly, otherwise they're going to get angry with us.
Literally start the conversation with your supply chain, build the relationship. It takes time. We go to Asia, we know our supplier, we spend time. I go with slide deck about what is CSR. From the basic level is questioning the relationship with nature, with people from different origin who don't have the same way and of viewing consumerism and culture. Those conversations needs to be tackled. You need to spend time and invest time on your supply chain. That means knowing one and everyone. Those conversations are the future. So what we're doing here today, but also bring it to Asia.
Yeah. Great point. Hannes?
My advice would be, please keep supporting such fantastic platforms like the Future Fabrics Expo. The industry needs that, everyone needs that, and I think it should grow and be even more meaningful in the future. And that can only be done by everyone here in the room staying curious and wanting to be part of the change.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think being ready to roll up the sleeves and do some work, because it will require some extra work to do this transition.
Yeah.
Yeah, persistence and a lot of collaboration. As I said before, we're not competitors. We should be collaborating more between us, because at the end we're also busy, and I know that in this room there is a lot of startups and young companies as ours, so we're just so much focused on our day-to-day, and that's why also these type of experiences are so important, because at the end for us, more than the brands that we meet here during the fair, is also the possibility of interacting with the industry, which is super nice. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Please give a round of applause to our panelists. And thank you so much for your attention. We hope you enjoyed the panel. And I think key call to action from the panelists is roll up your sleeves and go and mingle and talk to each other and truly understand and be passionately curious, and have an amazing afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.